So I'm Piper from District. I do a variety of roles there, from community cultivation to event coordination, fundraising, cat herding, so working with my 11 co-founders who are all alpha males. And we've been at our corner at 9 o'clock and something, so as the Playa Group for about 14 years. We hail from the deep end, so if anybody's here, a long-time burner, they'll definitely remember that camp. That started out as a kiddie pool and a speaker and a cooler. So we definitely are the story of growing from basically absolutely nothing. 3 camps that camped close to each other that really combined and became great friends, and we kind of grew very holistically on the Playa. So we have had the joy and privilege, truly a privilege, of being at the 9 o'clock sector as the only large-scale sound camp with a rather giant sound system that's inland. Why? Why, and are we good neighbors? And I think that that's the question I ask myself every single year. How can we be a better neighbor? We always apologize to anybody who comes up to introduce themselves as neighbors. The first thing I say is, I'm sorry. So it's always good to start out with a supposition that you did something wrong. We really, I make relationship building and transparency a hugely important piece of our camp. So that really starts with placement. We've never lied about our sound system size. We are really transparent about when we'd like to make a change. We did try a big change 2 years ago, facing towards the man as example, and that was something that we worked very closely with placement on, and even had last minute hiccups as we started to get worried about being faced towards rangers' offices and medic stations, and realizing that they really probably wouldn't be able to hear it, and we weren't taking the brunt of our own sound, and I think we were even pulling back, and placement was like, no, let's go for it. And I think we all learned a lot that year, and obviously this year we went back to our old orientation for good reason, but always good to try something new after that many years. But we learned a lot, and I think that came from a great relationship with placement, and a lot of transparency, a lot of discussion, and a lot of a rearranging of neighbors. We also work closely with our neighbors. That year that we did replace ourselves, Swing City contacted me, this past, I guess as we entered into 2015's burn, just very, very worried about where they were. They loved being our neighbors, but they were taking the brunt of our sound in front of us the year that we faced the man, which for a very chill camp with hammocks and, chill space was not so great when they couldn't even hear their camp meetings. So that was something that we also were very transparent. I was transparent on my questionnaire that they wanted to be close to us, but they had requested to be behind the sound. We had, lots of calls together. So again, meeting your neighbor is very important. Talking to your neighbor is very important. We've had people, to have people that actually request to be close to us now, as opposed to the opposite, which usually is a shock to me. I think the first year we had Ego Trip and Shangri-La, I think Shangri-La-less. Request to be close to us, I was like, why? Are you serious? And now the Ego Trip guys do our power, and we've become really close friends. We steal and prank with those guys kind of all week long. We are big prankers, so you do have to be careful of that piece. We have a very specific sound system placement. So we direct our sound towards 10 p.m. where all the other sound camps are. I think that may be revenge for what they're doing at night by having to hear us during the day. Because it is a cacophony of competing sound systems, and even as a sound camp lead myself, I'm like, get out there and look at the Cold War tent, and I'm kind of like, whoa. But we work with the brunt of our sound, placing our private camp to take the brunt of that sound. So that's also sensitivity of ensuring that if you are an interaction that has a particular unpleasantness to it for some people, that you're taking the most unpleasant piece of that interaction. We turn our sound off when we say we will. We pre-publish a schedule. We have one night that we run late on Fridays, but that's published, and we are very particular about, and probably this is also largely a reason we still remain inland, about being a day camp. We like to have a quiet camp at night. We are all getting older. We have a district retirement center in the back of camp with a little wood sign that got run over by a golf cart, so that was, most of us are just sitting back there complaining about who all these young kids are that keep riding by, and hippie fishing occasionally. But really, I think similar to Stuart saying that Burning Man comes to him, we are really kind of like done after that first build week and just sit back there going like, oh my God, Do you got who has the best earplugs? So we choose a system. We have the advantage of a good fundraising system that has afforded us the ability to run a Function 1 sound system. The thing with Function 1 and choosing a good sound system is it's very highly directed. That sound system is at a quality level where it's made so that you can have a conversation like this right in front of the speaker and hear the person you're speaking with. It throws long, but it's very directed. It doesn't bleed. We have a sound engineer who starts out with a very lower volume and turns it up as the day goes on. So this is something people may not know. There's no need, as our sound engineer says, he's like, there's no need to blow everyone out of the water the minute we start. It's still loud. I'm not saying it's not, but it definitely is something that we engineer to be greater as the day goes on. And he is not overbassing the system. There's so much that goes into sound. That I kind of geek out learning about, but that system is something that I think we switched out to 2013, and it was the best switch that we've ever made. Law enforcement. This is the next one, and honestly, we have had some busts that have stings and a lot of scrutiny during the day, and because we tend to be one of the only big shows in town with a large population gathering, we get a lot of scrutiny. We had a fellow very close camp have a pretty large bust in 2012. And honestly, it shook us up because they had been casing us the whole week according to the file. So we went after building a relationship with them because I think after that week they realized there was no way to bust us. We had been running a clean show. We do run a clean show. We run an open bar. That's obviously has a lot of legality to it, so we need to ensure that we are running a clean show. And with that comes walking over to law enforcement and rangers at any level and introducing ourselves. They know every single person who's in the governing crew of 12. We offer them water. We'll take them in the booth to fist pump and blow the horn if they want to. And honestly, that has kept us in really good regard with what can be an unpleasant side for a lot of Burning Man. And the more that we keep, I guess I'm not going to go with the Godfather statement, but I guess I'll just say it: keep your enemies closer. And I don't mean to say that's not the nicest thing to say, because there are some really lovely people who run the park ranger side of that business. So we've really worked on that relationship, and it's pretty huge. Wanderers around a private camp, being polite, and this is again sort of in the law enforcement family, being polite but being aware, and introducing yourself, ensuring. We've had some bikes stolen within camp, we've had some people's things stolen from leaving their things unlocked, and unfortunately that's kind of a reality on the playa. So it's continuing to introduce yourself and be neighborly to people who are maybe just lost, not being unpleasant, and introducing yourself. The last piece is size matters, and this is really kind of links to acculturation, but curating and cultivating an inter-community that is at a size that's manageable. And honestly, this speaks to a lot that Sweet Thing was talking about. We're one of the largest memberships on the playa, and we've maxed out our theme camp space from a square footage standpoint, and I have a very hard time creating community when we're over 100 people, but we also have about 6 different operational areas that need a huge amount of staffing. So we have a necessity to operate at a larger size. What are the solutions? Some of it has been being neighborly with other camps that come and take over our bar. That enables me to shrink my camp size down. And in doing so, I can create a better neighborly relationship from you knowing the person who lives next to you. We started out at 267 people. The deep end was 310 when I started, and now we're down to 180. So I'm continuing to try and shrink it. I always tell people with community cultivation, don't go over 100, if at all possible. It's really, really hard to maintain that. And then how do we manage having, I want to make sure I'm covering anything. I don't want to overpack our gifted land for placement. And so that piece of really kind of keeping an interactive element and not having this gigantic private camp behind our interaction becomes, a challenge as well. So that piece of being neighborly, ask people who also can come in and run your camp so that you can create a larger interaction, maybe lesser of a size of private camp was also something I wanted to note. And that is really it.